Good morning. I had an opportunity I eagerly anticipated this past week. Sonder, our amazing director of music here at UUSM, and I have been working to get some new audiovisual equipment installed in our church. And unbeknownst to him or our minister Jeremiah, I'd finally found a reasonable excuse to return to the sanctuary of our wonderful church facilities. I entered in an excited but quiet awe after over a year and a half being away, which I realized later is more than a quarter of the time since I first came to our Santa Monica church. It felt significant for me to be back at first, but it quickly felt almost unremarkable, which didn't really sit very well with me. But it wasn't indifference. I just realized that I had not been some traveler whose journey led her far from her community. We'd been there for each other the entire time. We moved online, and it's true that it was hard to casually keep up with as many people as it is in person. But we had the guiding light of our services, the opportunity of Zoom breakout rooms, and the extraordinary efforts of our caring team and others to keep us connected much more than I had anticipated. Our theme this morning is our spiritual home. But I found that I didn't really miss our church building the way that I thought that I would. In my head, it would be a big feeling of homecoming to just sit on a couch in Forbes Hall or to eat lunch in the courtyard. But there I was, and it was certainly nice. We have built a beautiful, welcoming facility. But ultimately, that wasn't the point. I had learned more deeply what I'm sure many of you who've spent decades part of our church have. Those who met your partners here, who weathered the storm of losing loved ones here, who've celebrated life's milestones here. That when tested, it turns out that it is the people and the message and the dedication to one another that we and the rest of the congregation speak every time we welcome a new member, every time we speak our covenant. Love is our doctrine, service is our prayer, and the dedication of our fellowship with each other is where my spirit's home actually resides.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be joining you on our virtual GLAM summer road trip. My name is the Reverend Jeremiah Lalshabaz Kalendae, and I serve as the developmental minister of the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. On behalf of our congregation, I am delighted to welcome you to this morning's service. We have lit our chalice this morning, and if you have a chalice at home with you, you're invited to light it at this time. We light our chalice this morning in honor of all of you. Everyone who has made this Unitarian Universalist virtual summer road trip possible. May the lights of our beings burn brightly, illuminating our lives with love. And may we recall these months that we've joined together in this virtual sanctuary and find strength and inspiration in them for the days that are before us.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. The sun. Do 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 do. Whoa, wow, 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 wow. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. The smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Sun, 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 sun. Here we come. Sun, sun, sun. Here we come. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. The sun. And I say it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. The sun. Sun, 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 sun. Sun, 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 sun. Here comes the sun.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Aubrey Sassoon, your worship associate this morning. The rest of the worship team and I are delighted to be joining you in our online sanctuary this morning. I'd like to give a special welcome to those of you from the many neighboring UU communities of the LA Basin joining us as part of the GLAM summer road trip, as well as the many people from farther reaches returning to join us through the wonders of modern technology. If you're new to our community, please know that our building is closed, but we still are here. And there are many different ways to learn more about us and become involved. We offer a multitude of programs to serve the needs of our congregation and to be of service to the larger world, offering broad religious and personal education classes for youth, as well as for people of all ages, in addition to serving as a pillar of community activism in our Santa Monica and West Los Angeles neighborhoods. If you're interested in learning more, please join us for one of our virtual visitor meetups. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience and ancient traditions. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation, diverse in our backgrounds, social locations, gender identities, ethnicities, sexual orientations, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We're united in a desire to create a diverse, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. As we begin this morning, we want to acknowledge that our Southland churches and communities, as well as the homes of most of our members, are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Tongva, Ashamen, Tataviam, Payamkawicham, and Chumash peoples, who live here and have cared for these lands for thousands of years. This land was stolen from them by colonial settlers. We recognize and we mourn the often deadly harm inflicted on the indigenous people of this country. We lift up their grace, resilience, and their relationship with these sacred lands. Please join us directly after the service for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom with a number of breakout room options and opportunities to get to know one another more deeply. Those viewing the service through YouTube or another platform can join us by following the links posted in our UUSM Facebook group. For those joining from other UU congregations through the GLAM Summer Road Trip, please feel free to post your own weekly announcements or a link where attendees might learn more in the Zoom chat. Anyone else interested in learning more about our UU Santa Monica community can visit our website at uusm.org or our online newsletter at news.uusm.org for the latest events and activities. Come now and let us worship together.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound.
El amor es la enseñanza de esta iglesia.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
Buscar la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es la oración.
The quest for truth is its sacrament and service is its prayer.
Vivir juntos en paz.
To dwell together in peace.
Buscar el conocimiento en la libertad.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
Servir a la humanidad en comunión.
To serve humankind in fellowship.
Así es como convenimos unos a otros.
Thus do we covenant with each other.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill,
Good morning. Welcome back. I hope you had a really fun summer. Whether you stayed home, went to camp, went camping, who knows? I hope you really enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed our little field trips all around the different UU churches in Los Angeles that we had every Sunday. But we're back. Back at our, what I guess a lot of people would call our spiritual home, right? Now, what does it mean to have a spiritual home? Well, for some people, that means coming to church every Sunday and prepping for coffee hour, right? Their spiritual experience is making the coffee, is setting out the mugs, is sneaking cookies to the little kids. For them, that is their spiritual sort of home, is our normal church space, but specifically coffee hour. For a lot of Jewish folks, their spiritual home is their temple or synagogue. But for some, on Shabbat, so from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, their spiritual home is their literal home, which is, right, a fun departure, maybe, for some people. For a lot of Catholic folks, their spiritual home would be a Catholic church or a Catholic camp. As UUs, specifically UUs at our church, our spiritual home is the church, but we are not there yet, right? We haven't been able to be physically back in the building because all of the things that are happening in the world, right? So what I want you to do is to think about what church really means to you. What does your spiritual home, what is it that you get or give when you come to church that makes it your spiritual home? It could be meeting new people. It could be talking to the same people, the routine of that. But really think on what makes UUSM your spiritual home. And that's really my question for y'all this week. Let me know your answers. You can email me. You can text the work phone. And maybe next week we'll talk about what some of our answers were about what makes UUSM our spiritual home. Have a really great rest of your day. Bye.
Go lifted up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. Go lifted up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day.
I invite you to the time in our service we dedicate to spiritual exercise, mindfulness, and silent meditation. You're invited to sit quietly and to bring your awareness to your breathing, remembering that in so many religious wisdom traditions, Our breath is our connection to the very source of life itself. So just gently allow yourself to breathe and dwell. Breathe and dwell. Cultivating an inner balance and calm. Allow each breath, each noise, each word, each moment of silence to bring you deeper into the heart of your own being. I offer these brief, prayerful words from my multi-religious grounding in the Hindu and Sufi wisdom traditions. As I Om, the sacred syllable of many Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, and other communities, you're invited to also inwardly Om within your own heart, feeling the vibrations there open and expand your heart space, and in turn your whole being. Bismillahirrahman. In the infinite heart spaciousness, Yerahim, in the compassion and in the serenity. We return to ourselves, dwelling in our innermost being. Let us meditate together in the beauty of silence for a few brief moments and sit with whatever may be on our hearts this morning. I will ring the singing bell once to begin and then again to end our time for silent meditation. Amen, and blessed be. The summer is winding down. Many of us are returning from the first visits we've had with family and friends in quite a while. We thought we'd be emerging from the pandemic and returning to some semblance of life as we once knew it, but the pandemic had other plans. Parents are sending their children back to school. Many young adults are returning to college or trying to find work in these unstable times. Our churches are preparing for yet another year of birthing beloved community in the midst of so much uncertainty, stress, fear, and anxiety. We're trying to be resilient and regenerative and attentive to the well-being of our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our spirits, and those who we love and we care about, as we all navigate these unfolding realities together. Many of us are so fatigued from the last year and a half of living through this public health nightmare that we're starting to let our guards down, but we have to remember that we're not quite out of the woods just yet. We've had the blessings of belonging to beloved communities or discovering them anew. And that's something for which I am so grateful, and I know many of you are grateful too. We didn't have to face the past 18 months alone as we embarked upon a new church year. We know that we can find continuing strength and support and courage and caring in our beloved congregational homes. We're now in a transitional period as the seasons begin to turn, the nature of the pandemic changes once again, and our Greater Los Angeles Ministry virtual road trip, which allowed us to virtually visit our neighboring Unitarian Universalist congregations each week, comes to its conclusion. Next Sunday, we will be regathering with our local spiritual homes to continue the missions of our many congregations in the world. Hopefully, we will take with us the blessings of this time in which we were able to gather together across and around the city of angels like never before. Spiritual homes are places of refuge and belonging and hospitality. This summer, we opened our virtual sanctuary doors to each other and created something that was greater than any single congregation could create. We constituted a spiritual home for our neighbors, and we learned from each other and had some fun and established some relationships that will endure long beyond this virtual road trip. We saw what's possible when we work together and creatively pool our resources to a common end. I want to thank everyone in each of our congregations who helped to make this possible. And I want to thank you for showing up for beloved community in a time when it's so easy to fall into the traps of isolation and despair. We generated a powerful Unitarian Universalist spiritual community that brought our congregations together into a greater wholeness. And it will be forever remembered as one of the ways we UUs lived out our liberal faith in the midst of this global pandemic. Now, while some members of our larger society got lost down the rabbit hole of disinformation and conspiracy theories, and others turned to racial terrorism and authoritarianism, we demonstrated the power of beloved community and the enduring values of our liberal faith. Our faith calls us to protect freedom and democracy, resist authoritarianism and fascism, dismantle white supremacy, eradicate inequalities, and heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, which warn us against the idolatries that have unfortunately consumed many in our society. It is beloved community that we lift up, all that is of sacred value to us. And we've held it high as a torch in times when it was easy to get lost in the gloom and the confusion and the despair. Just think of what's possible in the future if we find more ways to collaborate and strategize and celebrate and play together. I think this has been a lesson for all of us in the power of interdependence and of our interbeing with each other and our larger world. Finding a spiritual home can be one of the most important and transformative events in the course of life. Our world is increasingly fragmented, and so many suffer from alienation from the larger society and even from themselves. It's in spiritual community that we find the resources to deepen our own lives and discover and sustain our callings in the world. It's in congregations that we can, in the words of John Luther Adams, practice what it means to be human and come to remember our place in the larger world and in the natural world and our responsibilities to each. It is where we can make a difference through prophetic witness and by being of service to neighbors who are beyond our walls, whether they be physical or virtual. Many liberal and open-hearted folks have been left to believe that all religion is the same and it's oppressive and it's probably outlived its usefulness. Millennials and Gen Z have little exposure to religion, and few still identify with religious organizations as compared with their elders. Many claim to be spiritual but not religious. But when I dig deeper in my own questioning, I find that what passes as personal spirituality in our culture is often barely distinguishable from secular materialism. Others have filled the hole left by organized religion with bigoted ideologies like white supremacy and heteropatriarchy, conspiracy theories and pseudosciences. There are many in our world who are longing for a loving, liberal, values-based communities to make their spiritual homes. I believe that we have a critical role to play as people seek real community and a place to deepen and explore the existential dimensions of life and to make a difference in the lives of others and in their own lives. Spiritual communities, beloved communities, congregations, they have an important role to play in making meaning of the human condition, stitching back together our fragmented society and determining how we as a people will respond to the issues of the day. I want to call upon you to go out into this sometimes harsh but also beautiful and astonishing world and testify. We are in need of witnesses to beloved community who know something of its power and its potential. The pandemic has taught us that church is not just a building. It is the people. The spiritual home created by people gathered together with common purpose. The origin of the word home even alludes to a village of souls, perhaps even a community that extends beyond the present to embrace who and what has been and who and what may be. The pandemic has also taught us that technology is creating all kinds of new ways for us to create community together and live out our liberal religious values and missions in the world. We have an opportunity before us to become the influencers for a world transformed if we but seize it. The oft-quoted words of the writer Anaïs Nin ring particularly true in this time. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom. Pandemics made plain the fractures and inequalities in our social fabric, and it's revealed some of the tools we now have at our disposal to create more accessible, inclusive, healthy, and just communities and world. Let's take this opportunity to catapult our liberal faith to even greater heights of inclusion and justice and spirit. Let's go out and testify, like our religious siblings, to the power of beloved community and tell stories of what it's meant to our lives and how we've shown up for beloved community when times got tough and when we were all in the struggle together. Let's blossom together so our world knows there's another way. Capitalism's endeavor to extract more and drive everyone into meaningless corporate servitude, sometimes meaningless, and religious fundamentalism's endeavor to scare everyone into obedience aren't the only ways, and they never have been. Let's witness to the kind of world we know that's possible when white supremacy, heteropatriarchy, the gender binary, environmental degradation, speciesism, nationalisms, prejudices, violence, and materialisms have all been relegated to the dustbin of history. Let's blossom and not fear our own liberal religious beauty. With the tragic events unfolding in Afghanistan right now, I can't help but think of the events of nearly 2 decades ago when this country rushed into a cruel and unjustified war on the peoples of Iraq and Afghanistan in the name of freedom and democracy. I remember marching in the streets as the wars broke out and our spiritual homes calling for an end to war as we memorialized the lives lost. In one of my congregations, we read the names of the dead, Americans, Iraqis, Afghans, and others, every Sunday for years, and the list of names never came to an end. Of course, that was impossible when around 1 million people were killed, the vast majority of whom were civilians. And many more were maimed and injured and left to live with the brutal traumas of body and mind and spirit. Many of us sat by and watched in horror as our politicians, war criminals, lied to the American public through the course of these wars. Opinion polls surged in the direction of the lives, and we were left helpless to stop the violence that was being committed against so many here and abroad. Politicians on the left and the right voted for the wars, and few were willing to speak truth to power when it mattered. The disasters in Iraq and Afghanistan led to the creation of vast networks of terrorism in the Middle East that continue to operate and wreak havoc to this day. No one's been held accountable for committing these crimes against humanity. And many of those who voted to authorize these wars now occupy the highest levels of leadership in our society. What I remember, perhaps more than anything else, from the events of the past 2 decades was the powerlessness of the religious left to stop the violence or to hold anyone accountable for the crimes that were committed against so many people. We didn't have the organization, the messaging, the money, or the strategy to do much beyond react to what was happening in our names. I fear that not enough has changed, and that we haven't learned the lessons of history, so that when the next fascist, the next war-possessed politician, the next authoritarian takes power, we again won't be organized enough to stop them and whatever harm they may bring to our doors. Our spiritual homes must be places of refuge, belonging, and hospitality. But they also must be powerhouses of a love that resists injustices, that challenges violence, and that demands accountability from those in our society who commit great evils and cause great harm. Our spiritual homes should be integral dimensions of the conscience of a nation and of a people when unscrupulous individuals and powers seek to delude others, to distort the truth, to divide neighbors, to poison to democracy, or to enact violence anywhere. Perhaps new technologies will allow us to connect and amplify and organize in ways that were never before possible, to side with truth and love and unity and compassion, and to resist and reject those who would try to lead others astray from their own humanity. I believe our moral calling as Unitarian Universalists is higher than we realize. And to achieve it in the years before us, we have to continue creating spiritual homes that are resilient and regenerative incubators of the love our spiritual ancestors taught us had the power to completely transform lives and heal our broken and hurting world. We have to continue to open our doors to each other and to deepen our sense of interdependence and interbeing, and enliven our knowing that we are not alone and we are indeed so much more powerful together. May this GLAM summer road trip help us to dream in expanded ways and open our hearts to even more love and possibility. Amen.
We gather for more than ourselves. At the UU Community Church of Santa Monica, we donate 50% of our weekly offering to organizations and groups doing work in the wider community which advances our principles of a just and kind world. Our offering today will benefit the UUA Disaster Relief Fund. This fund, administered by our national representative organization, delivers aid to communities affected by disasters both as a result of natural phenomena, like hurricanes and fires, as well as those with human origins, like crumbling infrastructure. You can give by mailing a check, by setting up a contribution through our website or by sending a text as shown on screen to 844-982-0209. That's 844-982-0209 with the amount and the code GCC or the code PLG to send it as a member pledge. The information will also be shared in the chat. For those joining us from other congregations, please use the respective links now shown on screen to support your local community. Your generous contributions support the work and communities we all hold dear. Thank you.
Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow make us wise, to all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on.
Words and deeds of those before us, waking here to keep us strong. Our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on.
Loyal guides in love and duty, loyal guides, lead us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Honor is their earthly pride. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on.
We have shared a radiant hour.
We have shared
when the truth has made us free and true.
and the Spirit's gracious power.
Spirit of grace,
Dream of good that yet shall be.
for good. Right the path before us lies.
Is the path. Joyful pilgrims now be
Life
right.
calls us on. Life calls us on.
in peace. Hold fast to that which is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint of heart. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor all beings. Go and be blessed and be a blessing.